A new video just taken days after the AEW All Out Brawl possibly shows a bite mark on Kenny Omega's arm in the position where he was reportedly bitten by AEW producer Ace Steel. We've got the video and the zoomed image of that. Plus, a former Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship tag team debuts last night on Rampage. Talking of Ring of Honor, the world champion of the brand, Chris Jericho, will be defending the championship this coming Wednesday on Dynamite. We've got an update on Jon Moxley's future on the independent scene. We've also got an update on Renee Paquette and Michael Cole keeping in touch with her after her WWE exit, and a former Dark Order member returns on Rampage last night. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. And let's start off talking about Kenny Omega. Just when you think some of the details regarding the All Out Brawl have finally all been revealed, we know this investigation is ongoing. We know as of right now, there isn't really any change to the status of those involved in the AEW Brawl after All Out, that being CM Punk, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Ace Steel. But we have some new footage, which again, does put a lot of credit into the reports that Kenny Omega was bitten by AEW producer Ace Steel. And that has been widely reported that in the ensuing melee after All Out, which involved CM Punk, Ace Steel, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks, all fighting, according to several reports and according to several eyewitnesses, Kenny Omega was trying to remove CM Punk's dog Larry from the situation, and as he was doing so, he had his hair pulled and he had his arm bitten by AEW producer and longtime friend and trainer of CM Punk, Ace Steel. Now, at the time, we didn't obviously have much footage. Well, we don't have any footage of it. We didn't have a lot of evidence of the subsequent bite, and obviously it wasn't recorded or anything like that. The only evidence people had was eyewitness testimony. We had previously spoken about on the channel because just after the All Out Brawl, Kenny Omega flew to Japan. Now, he was scheduled to be in Japan to promote AEW's upcoming console video game, AEW Fight Forever, but due to his suspension, he couldn't actually participate in any of the promotion, but he decided to go anyway, visit some friends, catch up with people. He had dinner with Kota Ibushi, etc. So he was catching up with people there. Now, he was at a video game show where he was wearing a short sleeve t-shirt. He didn't wear many t-shirts during the trip, it must be said, probably to actually cover up the bite mark itself. But he did wear a t-shirt once, and there was an image of him, and it seemingly showed a bite mark on his arm. Now, in an update on this, there is now a video that has been released, and it would appear to show Kenny Omega having a bite mark on his arm. Now, the video in question is from September 12th, 2022, which would be just days after All Out. All Out was on September 4th, 2022, so we're talking about 8 days removed from the event, and 8 days removed, if you've got a significant bite mark on, if you got bitten on your arm significantly, 8 days removed, chances are you're probably still going to have a bruise on your arm, and certainly there is a bite mark visible on Omega's arm. This comes from Heoming_masked Instagram story. As I mentioned, the date in question is also on the video. We've got the video in question here, so let's take a look at the video and then we'll take a closer look at the image itself.
Oh, can I?
So you can kind of see there, we've got a circle around it too. It does appear to be on Omega's forearm, and it's the same location in which the mark in question was before. When Omega was at that game show in Japan, there was a visible bite mark on his arm. Of course, this is filmed around the same period of time. It might even be the same day. I'm not sure if he's wearing the same t-shirt in question. Nevertheless, there certainly does appear to be that same mark on his arm. I've seen some people suggest that this is from cupping, etc. Kenny Omega has been well known to have cupping therapy. Of course, he has it on his back, and he's been coming back from injury. But the question is, if it was just a cupping mark, if it was a cupping mark on Kenny Omega's arm, why would he not have the remainder or other parts of his arm also cupped? It, to me, looked very much like a bite mark. And again, I know some people are saying different, but certainly it's another indication that the bites did indeed happen. You can make up your own mind on that. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. But certainly, it's an interesting development when it comes to that. Now, regarding Ace Steel himself, there was some confusion about his status with AEW as well, because with Ace Steel and AEW, it must be said too. Now, as I mentioned, Ace Steel is under suspension. Several people were suspended, which was even those people that were deemed to be peacemakers, rather. They've since returned to work there with the likes of Christopher Daniels, Michael Nakazawa, Pat Buck, etc. However, Ace Steel has taken to social media and perhaps given an insight into his future by posting to social media a clip from the 1980s film The Blues Brothers, classic film. If you haven't seen it, it's one of the greatest films ever. I love that film. And it features Aretha Franklin singing her hit song Think. The refrain in question features the word freedom several times. Now, the Wrestle Purist Twitter account brought the post to light, as Steele's own Twitter account is currently set to private, but a lot of people were suggesting, oh, wait a minute here, does this mean, with Ace Steel saying freedom, 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 or implying freedom, does this suggest that Ace Steel's future has been resolved of AEW? Does this suggest that Ace Steel has been fired by AEW? What does this mean? It would appear it doesn't mean anything, to be honest with you, because as of a couple of days ago, according to Dave Meltzer in the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, and he would know because he would have spoken to either Tony Khan or most likely the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega himself, there is no update. Nobody has been told anything. By all accounts, according to Meltzer, there are still some people that are scheduled to be interviewed or need to be interviewed that have yet to be interviewed. We had heard last week that there was one party being uncooperative and was threatening legal action against all those involved. Again, we don't know who that is. I broke that down in a separate video, so be sure to check that out. But also, the latest development when it comes to Ace Steel is not much for development because there aren't any developments. And as I mentioned when we spoke about it previously, I do not expect at this point to see Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks inside of an AEW ring again in 2022. I think this investigation is going to drag out. I think especially with legal threats hanging over everyone's head, unless Tony Khan can mediate everyone involved, or unless Tony Khan can negotiate what I think is most likely, which is a buyout of CM Punk's AEW contract. However, it can be complicated because Tony Khan recently indicated in an interview, in that infamous interview now with Ariel Helwani, that CM Punk might have actually had an office role with AEW, and that makes his future a lot more uncertain too, because he's not just a talent, he could possibly be an employee of the company too, which changes everything from an employment law perspective. So this again is a story that's going to drag out, but I thought certainly it was interesting that we got more footage of certainly that rumored bite mark on Kenny Omega's arm. Last night was Rampage on TNT. We had certainly some interesting developments on the show, one being some former Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions debuting on the show. Several notable free agents with history in Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, and WWE have signed with AEW and now debuted on Rampage. At the end of the AEW Rampage taping, 3 major free agents debuted as Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, and Maria Kanellis debuted at the end of last night's edition of Rampage. Now, interrupting a segment featuring FTR, the Kingdom was here and wasn't wasting any time getting to work chasing the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships. Now, whilst most recently appearing in Impact Wrestling in Honor No More, the signing is notable in that WWE was also reportedly interested in signing former Ring of Honor World Champion Matt Taven. Their other Impact Wrestling pal, who recently became a free agent, that being Vincent, has not only been spotted backstage at WWE, specifically this past Monday at Raw, with fellow former Ring of Honor star Dutch, but has been heavily rumored to be joining Bray Wyatt's new faction in WWE, the Wyatt Six. Now, afterwards, they posted a promo that they had on social media with Lexi Nair. You can go and check that out. But as far as the Kingdom being in AEW, again, it's fine. It's fine if they have plans for Ring of Honor. Now, I do believe Tony Khan does have plans for Ring of Honor, but this would make to me a ton of sense if Ring of Honor has a television deal lined up, which I don't feel that they do at this point, unless, again, as part of these television negotiations with Warner Media Discovery, they can get a TV deal. Otherwise, the Kingdom coming in is just like when they've had other ex-Ring of Honor stars show up. Okay, that's great, but what are they going to do? They're going to challenge FTR for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championships. Okay, FTR will probably win, and even if the Kingdom win, how many I don't see how they fit into AEW. That's my key indication there. How do these guys fit into AEW? I see how they fit into Ring of Honor. And the irony is that they were just part of a faction in Impact Wrestling saying Honor No More. Actually, Honor More, because we're back with Ring of Honor. again, they're great for the ROH roster because they've got so much history with the brand, former tag team champions. There's continuity there as well because they were both there when it shut down. So again, that makes a ton of sense. And Maria Kanellis being involved in AEW makes a ton of sense. She was very involved in the women's division in ROH. There could be a possibility she's involved in creative. She's spoken about that too. So that's great. How do they fit into AEW? I don't really see. That's the difficult thing here. And unless Ring of Honor has a television deal lined up around the corner, I don't see how they don't get lost in that shuffle. I really don't. I'm hoping for them to prove me wrong. Again, if Ring of Honor had weekly television, then we'd be talking about a different story here because they'd have time to tell a story. Them and FTR, it'd be a decent feud, and I don't know how much it would draw in terms of eyeballs on the product, but certainly there would be a place for it. And I don't at the moment see a place too much for them in AEW. Could be massively wrong, hope I'm massively wrong, but seemingly they're going to feud with FTR. When they're going to have that match, I don't know. Certainly not going to be at Full Gear. I don't know if there's going to be another Ring of Honor pay-per-view this year, whether maybe it's going to be Final Battle or something like that. Usually that's in December, I think, so that's a possibility maybe. And maybe then we'll get an update on Ring of Honor's TV deal, which is what they desperately need. As I've said a million times here on the channel recently, in my opinion, the solution to AEW's troubles when it comes to having the bloated roster, having people unhappy about television time, having people unhappy that they're not working or they're under contract and creatively it isn't where they want to be, etc. The solution is Ring of Honor. But to get Ring of Honor up and running, they need to have a TV deal. And maybe they tried to do live events too. You know, maybe, I know that's not the model for AEW, but maybe it needs to be for Ring of Honor. I'm not sure. But I saw this last night and okay, I'm sure the match will be fine, but it's not game-changing. I'm sick of that word game-changing anyway because it's turned into a meme at this point with AEW. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the Kingdom. Speaking of Ring of Honor, the World Champion Chris Jericho will be defending his ROH World Championship next week on Dynamite. During Friday night's episode of Rampage, Jericho, along with fellow Jericho Appreciation Society members Daddy Magic, Matt Menard, Cool Hand Angelo Parker, Daniel Garcia, and Anna J.A.S. made their way to the ring to celebrate Garcia's homecoming to the group. Garcia was adamant that he is a sports entertainer and said he learned his lesson before Jericho got on the mic and said he is the greatest ROH World Champion of all time. Challenging Jericho's declaration, Dalton Castle headed to the ring, flanked by the boys. He said, quote, "To see that championship around your waist, your stupid, naive, city little goose, it makes me sick. I broke my back for that championship, and I'm willing to break yours to give that title and all these viewers what they deserve. A champion they can be proud of. These lights stay on because my heart beats." Castle went on to formally challenge Jericho to a title match, to which Jericho accepted and stated the Ring of Jericho era was upon us. Now, he did mention recently, didn't he, of course, that Jericho was going to face off against all former Ring of Honor World Champions possible, which Dalton Castle is one of them. Now, Castle was actually crowned Ring of Honor World Champion after he defeated, ironically enough, Cody Rhodes at ROH's final battle in 2017. He's also a former ROH World Television Champion. He currently holds the Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Team Championships with the boys too. Jericho will win, clearly, next week. It's more Ring of Honor stuff for Jericho. And look, you have to give credit to Tony Khan. What I'm saying about the Kingdom there, but you have to give credit. He is doing his utmost best to get Ring of Honor over. Not that it's not over anyway, but more so with the more mainstream audience or with his larger audience. He's doing his best to get it over. And to a point, I guess, that he wants, again, Warner Media Discovery to give him a show. And he's doing his utmost best to do that. But again, if he feels like just putting a championship match on for the sake of it next week is going to draw, I don't think it is. But this is, I guess, just part of the Ring of Honor World Championship storyline. So there you go. Dalton Castle's going to face Chris Jericho. Jon Moxley, of course, Jon Moxley signed that long-term contract extension with AEW, 5 years with the company. Now, AEW recently announced that Moxley, as I mentioned, had signed that 5-year extension and will, quote, work exclusively for AEW and its international partners, including New Japan Pro Wrestling. He is expected to continue wrestling on independent shows. However, this was quite a conflict recently. Now, Dave Meltzer reported in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that Moxley wanting to work independent dates played a role during contract negotiations between the two sides. As I spoke about previously, Meltzer had written, quote, Moxley wanted a deal to continue to do independent shows, while Khan wanted him to no longer do them. In time, they agreed to do it. Moxley will likely be doing far few shows, but like before, Khan has to approve them, but in the past, he didn't turn them down. Now, Moxley noted he will change how he approaches taking independent bookings in the future. In order to maintain his health and stay away from alcohol, he will no longer have a balls-to-the-walls mentality that can lead to wrestling while hurt and washing the pain away with alcohol. He said, quote, Meltzer did rather, quote, because of this, he expects to do indies when he wants to, but he will not be advertised on those shows or have shows built around him as the drawing card. His feeling is that if he is advertised to be on the show, he won't want to pull out of the show if he's hurting or if he just feels like spending a weekend with his family because of the commitments. So essentially, Moxley is reduced when it comes to the indies. He's not going to completely not do them, but he has decided to, one, Tony Khan has the opportunity to turn them down, not that he would, but he's going to take far fewer of them, and the shows aren't going to be built around him, and he's not going to be the headline attraction, which for some indies will be disappointing because you put Moxley on a card, you advertise it, you're going to draw. Ultimately, though, Moxley signed a contract, and now he's exclusive to AEW, and I think Tony Khan, as I mentioned, clearly, on the basis of the work, the incredible work that Moxley's done this year since returning from rehab and being the MVP of the company, Tony Khan has clearly decided to build the company around him for the next 5 years, which I think is probably a smart move on Tony Khan's part. Therefore, he wants to protect his interests, protect his assets, and I don't blame him for that. Speaking of Moxley, his wife Renee Paquette, of course, made her AEW debut this past week, and it's quite interesting, actually, because Dave Meltzer writes in the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter that Michael Cole, WWE's announcer, head of, I think he's like the director of commentary. He's got some long title in WWE. He's the voice of WWE, certainly, and he's massively, his commentary's always been good. People like to poo-poo all over Michael Cole. The reason Michael Cole used to suck in the past because Vince McMahon told him what to say. Michael Cole is an excellent announcer because he's been doing it for a really, really long time. And now you see, without having someone in his ear telling him what to say every 5 seconds, he's really good at what he does. Now, Cole regularly kept in contact with Renee Paquette after her exit from WWE. Now, Cole, as I mentioned, handles all of the announcing in the company, and WWE reportedly wanted to bring Paquette back when they announced the new commentary lineups. Unfortunately for them, she decided that she would rather move to AEW, which of course she has. We detailed how that deal came together. We spoke about that on the channel recently, so be sure to check that out. Finally, Rampage last night, of course, was in Canada, and it saw Stu Grayson reunite with the Dark Order. Stu Grayson is back in All Elite Wrestling. Might be for one night only, we don't know. On last night's edition of Rampage, Jose, the assistant, confronted the Dark Order. In recent weeks, he unsuccessfully has been trying to recruit Ten to leave the group and join forces with him and Roosh. Ten decided that he had had enough, so he challenged Roosh to a match next week to settle the matter once and for all. If Ten wins, Jose must leave him alone for good. The Dark Order then huddled, and an extra hand appeared in the pile. It turned out to belong to Stu Grayson. He hyped up his stablemates, and the group celebrated its reunion. Now, of course, Grayson's AEW contract expired in April. He last wrestled for the company on April 27, a taping of Dark Elevation, which aired on May 2nd. Again, we don't know if he's back permanently, if he signed a new deal with the company, if he's on a per appearance basis. We don't know. It could just be, and I kind of lean towards this, but again, this isn't for certain, it could just be a situation whereby AEW was in Canada, Stu Grayson's from Montreal, the same way as Evil Uno is, so he was just in town, and he did just a cameo backstage. If that is the case, that feels strange for him just to do that and disappear. So maybe he's decided to change his mind. I mean, he spoke about his big crux and his issue was that he wasn't wrestling and he wasn't working. And he felt like he had been there since the start, essentially, and he had earned the right to be wrestling every single week. Maybe he's changed his mind. Maybe he left and he saw the interest wasn't there. I don't know what he saw. But for last night's episode, at least he's back with the Dark Order and back with AEW. Is it a long-term, full-time thing? We don't know. But there you go, guys. That's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.